We're back on our YouTube. So going back real quick for our situationals for the OPSU women's to make the playoffs in San Antonio from March 4th to March 6th. They're 9.5 back from Incarnate Word, not going to happen. 8.5 back of St. Mary's. I do believe they can make the 3 games back of Texas Permian Basin because if they can win out these next 3 games, they're going to be there. Texas Permian Basin does not have an easy schedule looking forward.
But we play Lincoln, Newman, and Texas.
It's basically almost the same, though, that Texas Permian Basin has, too. And that team has not been hot lately.
But we played a not hot St. Edward's team, and we got blown out.
Lincoln is a half-game lead over the Aggies. Lincoln won the first game. Second is the last game of the season. That's going to be a very important game. They're also a half-game backs of St. Edward's. That series is now split. And looking at, then it will go to the overall record instead of conference record if it came down to a tiebreaker. And OPSU just ahead of them by half a game.
We have to win at least 2 of these to guarantee this finishing the spot we're in.
Actually, we looked at the wrong. They are a game and a half back of St. Ed's as far as overall record goes.
A game and a half back of...
So eventually, if they tie, it's going to be a tie straight across the board, most likely.
But we'll lose that tiebreaker, more than likely.
Alright, and then a half-game lead over Newman. Newman, though, won the first game. That second game is on the 25th. And they also have a half-game lead over Texas A&M International. But Texas A&M won that first game. The game is tomorrow. So that's going to be an exciting matchup. The Lady Aggies are going to really have to win out to make a good chance at the playoffs.
I don't see them winning out, even though their schedule's pretty easy considering who they play. But certain teams have their number because certain matchups exist within. Like the team that could beat Texas Permian Basin cannot beat Newman or Texas A&M International. I don't understand.
Really, there's a lot of things that happen in the girls' games. You know, Channy Latham has to hit her threes. Davis has to be very aggressive going at the basket. And then you have to hope that, Cherry and Schaefer is on their top of their games. And all this has to happen for a ladies' victory. I mean, you can always count on Camille Washington being there because she's almost there every night. And same with Nicole Candelaria.
They either shoot well and they'll win. But if they don't shoot well, they lose every time. Just hope they bring their stroke with them when they go.
Going over to the boys, Incarnate Word leads the conference 11-3. St. Mary's behind him 10-4. Newman has actually stayed in the race since their long losing streak at 9-4. Sits at 3rd place. Dallas Baptist 8-5, but guess who's the 3 games they got left? Incarnate Word, St. Mary's, and Newman. So all playing teams all ahead of them coming up.
Hopefully they get swept.
Texas A&M International 7-7. OPSU sits in the final 6th place spot at 6-7. St. Edward's 6-8 behind them. Texas Permian Basin 3-10. And Lincoln 1-13, rounding out the conference. Of course, we don't mention University of Arkansas Fort Smith because they're an alliance member so far.
But then next year they might not be an alliance member.
And that's going to make it a much tougher matchup. Boys, 3 conference games left. 5.5 back of Incarnate Word. They're not going to catch them. 4.5 back of St. Mary's. They're not going to catch them. 3.5 back of Newman. Newman won the first game. If Newman gets swept, which means Dallas Baptist would win a game, OPSU would have a chance to tie them. I believe Newman's record's better, though, so therefore they are not going to pass Newman. Dallas Baptist, though, is a very possibility of OPSU jumping them, as they are 2 back, and OPSU won both games against Dallas Baptist.
Surprisingly, without their best player and with their best player. So,
well, and it also helps when, Aaron Ruiz the lowest score for the Aggies,
went off, right?
15 points, all from beyond the arc.
So
that helps.
Yeah, it does.
And they are a half game back of Texas A&M International. OPSU won the first game. Guess what Saturday? Round 2.
What do you think they bring their Road Warriors with them this time? Because they won at home pretty easily, but can they win on the road? That's the question.
They're a half game lead over St. Ed's, but St. Ed won both of the matchups against the Aggies. They have a 3-game lead over Texas Permian Basin. That series was split.
They don't have a chance of catching up.
And then 5.5 game lead over Lincoln. OPSU won the first game. That's going to be almost a guaranteed victory on the last game of the season. And hopefully that is the victory that keeps the Aggies at 6th place for the trip to San Antonio.
We don't want to be 6th. We want to be 5th or 4th if possible.
Well, you just want to be 6th and then look forward, because if you're 7th, your season's over.
Yeah. St. Mary's, we can beat. We've proven that. Because we tied them in their series. But if we play Incarnate Word, that game's going to be a blowout.
We got to give big shout-outs, though, for this week's Heartland Conference Player of the Week, and Reggie Lassiter, after his 32-point performance over Dallas Baptist. A lot of OPSU players don't get recognized in the Heartland Conference, but
if you score 32, why not?
Exactly. And the other Conference Player of the Week was Chris Williams from University of Arkansas Fort Smith for his performance on Thursday night against the Aggies. So both teams played each other. Both teams kind of got the Player of the Week from playing with each other. So,
but it was a good game.
Chris Williams' performance over the Aggies didn't matter that much, because it just helps their record. They're obviously not going to make the playoffs with their type of record.
They're 7-17.
They can't win a conference title.
They can't even win a conference game because they're Alliance member, even though they did beat us.
And their 7-17 record is not good enough to get an at-large bid. So that game didn't matter. OPSU's victory, though, keeps them in the race for the Heartland Conference against Dallas Baptist. So I think Reggie Lassiter's performance meant a lot more.
Me too.
So that is OPSU's our little OPSU minute with softball and baseballs going on. Me and you seem not to be big fans of this, though, just because
we looked at last year's scores and we're like, nope.
And this year's scores are becoming to be real similar. No one told the baseball coach that the easiest way to win games is when the other team doesn't score any runs.
Right now, they're like scoring 20 runs a game, it seems like.
The pitching staff has been horrible. Now, I would really like to go out and say that the batting has improved a lot.
Well, at least we score.
I mean, we're scoring almost 5 runs a game.
But we give up
9.
We can't win like that. Softball team's a little more competitive, though. The games are much closer.
Well, and you talk about the softball coach, how much dedication that they have put into the softball program over the last couple of years. It's kind of like Coach Wyatt coming here. He's got this raggedy football team, and now they're coming out to turn into this winning team. I believe they were 1 game shy of having a winning record this year, but there's a lot of hype on next year.
Yeah, there's a lot of hype. Softball team, if they start figuring out how to win close games, they'll be a great team.
Alrighty, so that is our OPSU 10 minutes, and we will go with some songs and come back with more sports.